About the Trump indictment, even Saturday Night Live thinks it's weak.
These days, it's hard not to feel stressed out and overwhelmed.
Detail. And what ethnicity is Trump's judge again? Hispanic.
CNZ. In your mind, he's already in jail.
When you've lost SLN, maybe, just maybe, it's time to rethink. My next guest writes, quote, "At a time when progressive forces are creating a world increasingly oppressive and hostile to Judeo-Christian values, it's important our children learn lessons from a fearless and righteous man of faith. John Paul II's life teaches us truth matters and illustrates how one man's moral courage can change the world. For families of faith, this message is more important now than ever," end of quote. Please welcome former Pennsylvania Senator, former presidential candidate, and author of John Paul II, Be Not Afraid, Senator Rick Santorum. Senator, thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, Larry, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you again.
All right, Senator, your take on the Alvin Bragg indictment.
It's tragic to see this country continue to descend into a country that, Larry, you and I when we were born, we grew up in this country, and the vast majority of Americans, respected the country, respected the flag, respected the rule of law. And we have descended into a banana republic where everybody will use whatever power they have at their disposal to crush the other side so they can gain more power. And that's just what this is. This is another attempt to try to use the power that they have to influence the election, to drive out a candidate, or to whatever the case may be, whatever means necessary to do what they need to control more power. That's what this is all about.
I've not seen anything like it either, Senator. In 2022, we didn't do as well in the midterms as we thought. And one of the reasons was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But another reason was that I watched a lot of CNN and MSNBC. I say so, you don't have to. And they went on and on and on about election deniers, election deniers, election deniers. And I think a lot of people on the left were convinced that our republic was on the ballot. As you well know, for the entirety of Trump's presidency, Hillary Clinton referred to him as illegitimate, said the election was stolen. Al Gore believes the same thing about 2000. Benny Thompson, the chair of the January 6th committee, in January of 2005, joined 29 other Democrats and Barbara Boxer to try to overturn the results in Ohio after George W. Bush won re-election carrying Ohio. Nobody called them election deniers. Jimmy Carter publicly said he believes the Russians put Donald Trump in office in 2016. And Jay Johnson, Obama's Homeland Security Secretary, testified under oath that not a single vote tally was changed. The Russians tried, but failed to change a single vote tally. YouGov poll 2018, 66% of Democrats, a supermajority, believe the Russians changed vote tallies in order to get Donald Trump elected. I mean, what do you make of all this?
It is. Trump talks about rigged elections and conspiracies, and unfortunately, in my opinion, he focused on the wrong thing. What the rigging was just what you described, which is a party and a media that is in cahoots with each other to discredit anything that comes from conservatives or for Republicans, and in particular Donald Trump, and does everything to cover for the left in order to gain power. And so this is the rigging was all of these fabrications that you just went through, continually repeated over and over and over again to people who, frankly, have been taught in our schools, both primary, secondary, and certainly higher education, that America is an evil country and we need a whole new way of doing things. And now you're seeing it. You're seeing this whole new way of doing things, this woke ideology that suppresses speech, that intimidates people, and tries to control people's lives.
Senator, I think this trend picked up speed, obviously, when Donald Trump came on the scene. But I've written about the 1964 nomination of Barry Goldwater, for example, and the then governor of California, Pat Brown, said, and I'm quoting him, "The stench of fascism is in the air."
Yeah.
About President Reagan, Mo Brooks, a congressman from Mississippi, I believe his son is still in Alabama. Okay, I believe his son is still in Congress. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, Ronald Reagan gets his fascist precepts from the pages of Mein Kampf, end of quote. And about George W. Bush, George Soros said, when he says, meaning Bush, either you're with us or against us, it reminds me of the propaganda of people like Joseph Goebbels. So they've been saying this for a very, very long time. And if Donald Trump is not the nominee, whoever he or she is will become the new fascist.
Well, it doesn't, it wasn't that long ago. You and I remember, and a lot of people listening remember, when a guy named John McCain, the Maverick, the people that the guy that the left loved, the folks that the New York Times just coddled every step of the way, when he became the Republican nominee for president, he was a dangerous man. He was an ultra conservative. He was a loose cannon. He was someone who couldn't be trusted. Look, it doesn't matter as long as it's about the progressive agenda. It is about the left takeover of America. Right. And if anyone is trying to put tyranny in place, if anyone, and you can call it Nazism, you can call it fascism, whatever it is, it's dictatorship, it's autocracy. It is the top trying to tell everybody how to live their lives and not allowing any dissent. You can say that's Republicans. I haven't seen any Republican anywhere, anytime in my lifetime who has advocated for any of those things. It is advocated on mainstream media every single day to silence people, not to let people have their opinions, shut them down for speeches, protest them, silence them, and of course, put people in jail for trumped up crimes that don't exist. This is what autocracy, this is what dictatorships, this is how they start. And it's not the right, it's the left.
And regarding Trump, Senator, before he ran, rappers loved him. Jesse Jackson loved him. Al Sharpton loved him. He runs, becomes a serious candidate as a Republican. All of a sudden, he's not only a fascist, he's also a racist.
Yeah. No, this is what I said. It is Donald Trump in some respects, because Trump, more than any other candidate, stood up to the media and fought them. If there's one good thing that has happened as a result of the Trump presidency and effort, I think he's taught Republicans that we can no longer just be quiet and hope that the left doesn't beat the crap out of you, right, or the media doesn't beat the crap out of you. That was the way most Republicans who are running for president, I'll even include myself in there, we stood up a little bit, but we didn't really get in their face. And because we expected them to be at some point fair. They're not. They're part of the Democratic Party. They have completely discredited themselves, and it's not just Donald Trump. It is, in fact, every conservative and every Republican who fights against the woke agenda is now vilified by the mainstream media. They should not be respected. They are not an honest broker. They are part of a movement, and we need to continue to identify them as such.
Inflation has consequences. As the Fed raises interest rates to combat out-of-control government spending, long-term bonds have diminished in value, crippling banks. Depositors are holding their breath, and investors are bailing on bank stocks. Diversification has never been more important. And the recent surge in gold prices is directly tied to the extreme market volatility right now. This is why gold has historically been a great hedge against the stock market and against inflation. Now would be a fantastic time to diversify into gold with Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. Here's what you need to do. Just visit LarryForGold.com to get a free info kit on gold. They'll help you convert your existing IRA or 401k that's tied to a volatile market into an IRA in physical precious metals, gold and silver. And the best part, it's tax sheltered. So visit LarryForGold.com to claim your free info kit on gold today with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, and countless 5-star reviews. Birch Gold is who you can trust to protect your future. Visit LarryForGold.com today. That's LarryForGold.com. Our side has always been more civilized because we've always believed that they're just wrong. They need to be educated. They need to be informed. They believe that we're not just wrong, we're also evil people. And therefore they fight differently.
No, they do. But they don't believe in the existence of evil. They don't believe in the biblical teachings that most conservatives believe in. They believe I always say their church is the government. And they believe in the government. They believe in giving power to people who subscribe to their left-wing ideology, their woke ideology, and they believe in suppressing everybody who's opposed to it. And that is it's a very dangerous prescription for the future of this country.
Last thing on this topic, Senator, what do you make of the media, Democrats referring to what happened on January 6th as an insurrection orchestrated by you-know-who?
Yeah, I was working for CNN at the time when that occurred. I was actually in studio. It was live when this was going on. And the voice in my ear as this progressed, not originally, but as this progressed, was called an insurrection. This is an insurrection. I mean, we were being coached. The whole panel was being coached. Of course, I did not do that. I didn't see it as that. I saw this as, look, it was not a pretty sight. It was not a good thing. And I condemned it at the time, and I continue to condemn it. This was not something that conservatives should do. We're not an unruly mob crowd. But, compare that to what happened the other day in the Tennessee legislature, where 3 Democratic legislators led people in, and there was violence against the people in the chamber. They actually tried to take over the chamber. Not a word from the mainstream media about that.
All of a sudden, none dare call it an insurrection.
No, and it was in fact that. The only criticism was that they expelled the guys who led the effort. And meanwhile, the folks who didn't even lead the effort, who just wandered through the halls, have been in jail for a couple of years. I mean, this is, again, it's not an honest media. They're not telling the truth. And this is the most important thing that people have to recognize. And it's so sad. It's tragic that we have a society where we have media that is just partisan media. And by the way, I'm actually okay with that. If you look at the history of our country, from the very beginning, there was journalists. There were people who wrote for one party and people who wrote for the other. But everyone sort of accepted, we're there and we're telling our side of the story. These people go out there and portray as if they're somehow, these expert journalists and they're just telling the truth, all the news that fits the print, and they're no more than partisan hacks. So let's just come clean. We have two different points of view from the partisan perspective, and let people figure it out for themselves.
Senator, let's turn to your book, John Paul II, Be Not Afraid. I know that you are a devout practicing Catholic, so this is a near and dear subject to your heart.
It is. And I was just honored to write this book. It's, the Heroes of Liberty is the series. It's an excellent series. And I know you're very familiar with it, Larry, because of the work you've done with them. But it's really an excellent series for young readers to learn about great people all over the world who have stood up for liberty, who've stood up for the truth. And of course, in my mind, there's nobody that stood up for the truth more boldly and had more of an impact on the world in my lifetime than John Paul II, not just as a great leader of the Catholic Church, but as a great leader of the world in fighting communism in his native Poland, and really, along with Reagan and Thatcher, were part of the triumphant that took down the Iron Curtain and took down the Soviet Union. What an inspirational figure to have the privilege to write about. I had the opportunity to meet him on 3 occasions and have a chance to talk to him, went to Mass a few times with him. And so he's just been a hero of mine, and it was an honor to be able to work, to be able to write that.
Well, I never met Pope John Paul II, but I did meet Margaret Thatcher. And hopefully we're going to put up a picture of Margaret Thatcher and me smiling, standing next to each other. But talk to us about the 3 of them and the impact that they had.
Well, I mean, again, they were all warriors. They all identified evil and were not afraid to call evil for what it is. And that Ronald Reagan, called the Soviet Union the evil empire, and his speechwriters repeatedly tried to take it out of the text, and he kept putting it back in. They tried to take out of his speech, tear down this wall. And he kept putting it back in because the swamp has its own ethic, and they are afraid of standing up and really facing down evil. Thatcher faced down evil, and John Paul II not only faced down evil, he taught about that evil. He wasn't afraid to say, Satan exists, Satan is real, and he's active, and his devils are active in this world. I mean, he understood the spiritual dimension, not just the human dimension of what we're dealing with.
The book is called John Paul II, Be Not Afraid, and it can be ordered on the Heroes of Liberty website. It's heroesofliberty.com, is it not?
I think that's right.
.com? Okay.
Yeah.
Last thing, Senator, I am considering running for president. And if
I've heard that.
If I do it, I'll be announcing sometime at the end of the month. I know that you've done it, I think, twice.
I did.
Your thoughts?
I always say that I'm sort of the patron saint of candidates who are long shot candidates for the presidency, because unlike you, Larry, I didn't have the name recognition that you have going into Iowa. I mean, I had been a senator, but there are a lot of senators, and most of them don't have a whole lot of name recognition outside of their state. And I decided to run. And again, when I started, I probably are going to be, maybe you'll be higher than me, but I was at 1 or 2%. And I just went out and just worked my tail off. I did 3, and I planted my flag in Iowa. I also went to New Hampshire and South Carolina, but I planted my flag in Iowa, which is the first state, and did 385 town hall meetings and speeches in the course of a little over a year. And
Wow.
Now, I did it because I had no money, I had no name recognition,
Mm-hmm.
I had a message, and I thought someone to deliver it. Well, so I don't ever discourage anybody. I always tell people everyone in America should run for president because it's the most exciting experience you'll have in your life. It's a great opportunity to get out there and really understand what's going on in this country. And you never know. You have an opportunity to share your message, and you never know what could happen.
You never know. And I'm going to Iowa tomorrow. It'll be my 4th or 5th time. And Senator, we all know what the major issues are: the borders, the inflation, our poor schools. We're no longer energy independent. But I think I bring a couple of things to the table, at least I hope I do, that others don't. One, I can refute this nonsense that America is systemically racist in a way that I think others cannot. My dad doesn't know who his father was, left home at the age of 13, joined the military, became a Marine, cleaned toilets when I was a kid, started a little cafe, ran until his 80s. And when my dad retired, he owned that little bit of property next door to the restaurant and our home we still have in the family. So my dad retired with a little under $1 million net worth. Also, as you well know, the number one problem facing our country domestically is not crime, which is bad. It's not inflation, which is bad. It's the large number of children who enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother.
Amen.
70% in the Black community, half in the Hispanic community, 25% in the white community, which was the same percentage as was the case with blacks back in 1965. 40% today of all American kids enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. And I know you're the father of, 7 kids?
7, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote a book back in 2004 in response to Hillary Clinton's progressive rag, "It Takes a Village."
Yes.
And she put out the alert. Look, we're gonna raise your family. The government is gonna be in charge, and I'm not talking about state and local government. I'm talking about the federal government is gonna raise your kids. We're gonna have 24-hour daycare and everything. We don't need parents. We don't need dads. And I wrote the book in response. It takes a family. And the whole point of that book was just what you were talking about. I went through all those statistics, talked about the absolute importance of fatherhood, the absolute importance of Republicans and conservatives talking more about family policy and looking at everything we do. We'd come from a time, and you know this, that we have a lot of Republicans who are not pro-family Republicans. They're more economic Republicans, limited government Republicans. And they say, oh, well, government shouldn't be messing around with families and family policy. Well, you mess around with businesses. What's the essential business in America? The smallest business of all is the family. It's every little family is a business. And if we can give incentives and help out small businesses that are not families, why don't we help out families who are little businesses of themselves? So you're right on cue, and I appreciate your passion for that issue. You're absolutely right.
Senator Rick Santorum, the book is called John Paul II, Be Not Afraid. It's available on the Heroes of Liberty website. Senator, thank you very much for coming on. God bless.
My pleasure. God bless you, Larry. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, I know you like the show, so please hit that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get our subscriptions up. And then scroll down a little bit and get on our mailing list. That way you can make sure you don't miss any of our videos. Also, hit that donate button. Throw a little something in the tip jar. Make sure we continue giving you hard-hitting, candid, honest programming. Finally, Larry with Epoch, E-P-O-C-H, Larry with Epoch.com. I'm Larry Elder. This has been the Larry Elder Show for Epoch Times. Remember, we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time. God bless.